I've got the brand new COBALT5s. It was sent to me pre-release by Modal, which to me means two things. Firstly, it means the channel's doing okay. It's really nice to get sent things pre-release. I normally get things about 6 months after. I find them on eBay second-hand, I buy them, I sell them, etc, etc. If you know the channel, you know the score. But it also means that Modal are quite confident in it, because I do dig into things quite a bit, you know, and I really do pay attention to what they sound like. And I did review the COBALT 8 and I put it up against the OB6 and the microKOG just to show how virtual instruments have come on over the years. So maybe they're so confident in it, they're quite happy for me to take a look at this one. The tune you heard in the intro was all the 5S. There was 8 parts in total, 4 main parts and 4 sort of little one-off shots. And I'll go through all those patches in a minute. But before I do that, let's take a look at exactly what we've got here. If you know what the COBALT 8 does, you know what this does. It's just slightly cut down. There's a couple of things that it hasn't got, like a third LFO, but essentially it works in exactly the same way. We've got the 2 oscillator groups. They're called oscillator groups because it's virtual analog, but it doesn't just give us a square, a sine and a triangle. It gives us the result of what you get if you had 2 waves and you do an FM with them, or ring mod or synth, for example, and I'll show all that in a second. Then we've got 2 LFOs. We've got 3 envelopes. We've got a filter envelope, an amplifier envelope, and we've got this modulation envelope, and that can be assigned to anything. We've got 8 modulation slots in here, and all these things you can see in these little grey boxes are your modulation sources. Plus we've got an arpeggiator, a sequencer, and we've got 2 effects, a delay and a chorus. On the back we've got stereo outs, full-size 1/4" jacks. We've got an input for a sustain pedal, and we've got headphones out. We've also got a sync in and a sync out, but we don't have CV out. For MIDI, we've got the 5-pin DINs, plus we've also got the USB. USB's not for audio, it's just for MIDI and for firmware updates. And it's got an on-off switch, and it's worth noting because not everything has an on-off switch now. But another thing that's really worth mentioning is the app. It comes with this app, and you've got access to every single parameter. You can see we've got 8 modulation slots. If you're doing some deep editing on the COBALT, you'll definitely, I'd have thought, use this. And it's really good. There's the effects, sequencer section, keyboards, all settings, modulation, and your preset manager. But you can export your presets, you can import presets, you can do all sorts of stuff. If we load in a sequence, for example, let's have a look at the sequencer. There we've got the animation data, animation 1, animation 2, you've got 4 lanes of animation. And you've got a step sequencer, so you can draw your own notes in or edit them. And obviously that's really nice because it comes free of charge. Now before I go into all the various sections of this and how you build a tone, should we take a look at the patches I used on that demo track, just really to show how nice it sounds and what a lot of the presets can do. So to load a patch, we go to patch here. We're on patch number 39 there. Turn that down, it was number 26. There we go, let's load it. That's it, let's put it up an octave. Something like that anyway, and it was synced to Logic's clock. And then we had like a bass line. So load again, patch, press shift and turn it, and it goes up by 100. So 126 up to 150. Load. Bit full on that. Cut off down. Then there was like a pad. So again, patch, shift and go up 100. And this is on 206, it's one I've made myself. You get 200 presets and there's room for 100 more of your own. So where are we? Square and slow. And you can hear on that there's a bit pulsating. I think that was also synced just to keep everything bouncing along. Then there was a couple of little shots. I think I made these myself as well. Reso noise, that was one of them. Oh, turn it up. Pretty standard little noise. What else did I have in there? 1, 3, 4, and I had a little delay on it. This one called Airborne, it's at 43, so to go down 100, press shift, and then we go to number 43, and this was just a little chord. Just a nice little part that floats over the track. And then there was the main lead line, and again, I think that's one I made myself. It's a patch. The whole track's played at the end, but you'll hear this part drop down to a straight sawtooth and then open up into a super saw again. Well, it was something like that anyway. Thank God you can go into Logic and edit your sequences. And before we look at the actual architecture and how you build a sound, should we just take a look at the interface? I've mentioned it a couple of times now, but how do you access all those parameters with these sort of 16 knobs? And this is really well thought out actually. If you've used the COBALT 8 or the Argon, you'll probably understand how it works anyway, but if you're looking at this, you've probably not already got one. So let's just take a quick shufty at it. If we go into the main ones, cut off, resonance, morph and depth. We can see these ones across the top are accessed without clicking any other buttons. Look at the oscillators, for example. We've got A1 and B1. The mix. A2. And when I look at the oscillators, you'll understand exactly what I was doing there. But I'm just showing here that the main parameters that you'd use are accessed really easily. The second layer are these ones underneath, and they're sort of in, I don't know what to say, light blue. And you access them using the shift button. So we're in shift mode now, this light's lit. We'll go into the algorithm of oscillator 1. Just listen to 1 on its own, shall we? Tune it. In fact, let's put an initial patch on so we get rid of all that delay. Initial patch, really simple. Hold that button. So anything that you've got on these blue ones here, save, initial, random, sequence and patch, are easily accessed just by holding the button down. And then if I wanted to change the algorithm on that, I've still got shift down. And then take shift off and we're back on the top row. And we can access all the deep parameters as well. If we go on to, say, the algorithm again, then go to the parameter page, we're on oscillator 1, click that, and we can change various settings in there as well. Here we've just got access to the same ones as we got there. Go to the next page up, oscillator 2. These parameters, then the oscillator mix, the drift amount, that's there. So this is just replicating what we've got there so far. So actually, when I say there's deeper parameters, you can access pretty much everything from the front panel without going into the menu. On the filter, we've got cutoff, which is there, resonance, morph, and then we've got the filter type. That's not available on the front panel, but the modulation depth is. And to change those parameters, got resonant low pass here. Just use this knob to select which one you want, and then we can click on it. Sometimes you need the click, sometimes you don't. Go back up to the parameter page. We've got things like the amplitude envelope generator, which is accessed via this button here. And now I've got ADSR, press shift. So it's really simple to access everything actually. So back into the pages, we've got the filter envelope, which is this button here, amplitude envelope, or the amplifier envelope I should say, modulation envelope. Once we're in these settings here, we're just changing the different envelopes. So after the envelopes, we've got the LFOs, LFO1, LFO2. They're accessed via these two knobs here. We're on LFO1 now, click that, we're on LFO2. Let's change LFO1, let's change the shape, we're on shift. So shape is in the shift. So that's random, go to LFO2, that's a sine. And once you start using it, it all just seems to make sense. If you want to modulate something with LFO1, press the mod button, press LFO1, and then just tweak what you want to tweak, which is the cutoff here. So we can see the depth is changing. Hopefully you can see that on the camera. So now LFO1 is modulating the cutoff. It's going really slowly, so let's change the rate. Let's turn the cutoff down a bit. So there you go, you can hear that's working, and we've got 11 modulation sources. If we go into the app, we can see here cutoff is modulated by LFO1, and they're the various sources we can use, and they're all the destinations. So we've got 8 modulation slots you can see across here, and on the synth itself, if we just press the modulation button, you can see slot 1, slot 2, slot 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Really easy to access them. The mod button gets you there straight away. So slot 5, for example, let's add LFO2 to the resonance, just because we can. LFO2 to the resonance. And as I do that on the synth, you can see it changing on the app. Hopefully that gives an overall feel of how everything works on it. I'm not going to go through absolutely everything because there's lots of things in here. For example, if we go into the parameters again, mod slot 5, we go into the settings general, settings for the sequencer, settings for the UI and controls. So if we went in there, we've got the brightness of the LED, or the screen, sorry. We've got the brightness of the LEDs. That's actually really handy so that you don't get blinded by them. Keyboard lock on or off, velocity curve normal. You get the idea, there's loads and loads of things in there, but going back to the app, everything on the screen here, you can access on the synth. Hopefully that gives you an overview of how it all works. Let's move over then to sound design and how you build a tone. Okay, let's initialize the patch. Hold initialize. And we've got a sine wave on oscillator 1. Go to the mix, we're all the way over to 1. Okay. And that's just algorithm 1. We've got 40 algorithms. So algorithm 1 just gives you the standard analog wave shapes. Algorithm 2 gives you them crushed, and then there's 38 different ones doing lots of different things. So if we take a look at what the second function does, I'm now on algorithm 2 and it's bit crushing. If we go back to algorithm 1, let's put it onto a sawtooth and then change parameter 2. And there you go, you can hear 2 oscillators. And when I said earlier that they're oscillator groups because they act like 2 oscillators, you can hear there that they do. And then when we get to 64, so halfway, it has certain intervals or specific intervals. So that's just using one of the oscillator groups. We can then bring in the second one with the mix. So that's the second one. Let's knock that down an octave. Bring the other one back in. So there we've got 2 oscillators and a sub. Maybe let's spread that second oscillator as well, or the second oscillator group. So now we've got 4 distinct tones. So all in all, you've got 4 oscillators acting on 5 different notes or 5 voices. So you've got 40 oscillators all in all. Let's take a look at some of the other algorithms. Let's go back to the initial patch. Go to the algorithm. Spread saw, that's a bit like a super saw. So without any spread on it. Then add the spread, and we can also detune that as well. So still very much a virtual analog synth, but just doing it in a sort of clever way, I suppose. Next up, a spread square. So a super saw or super square. And here, the first parameter is sort of changing the amount of the sort of super saw or super squariness, whatever you call it. Read the manual, they've probably got a better explanation. And we go to algorithm, what are we on, algorithm 4 now? Spread triangle, it's the same sort of thing. Let's get to some more interesting things. PWM, PWM dual, PWM triangle square. So that's like a mix or a blend of a square and a triangle wave. Let's have a listen to what that sounds like. So now we're moving into things that you get on little modular bits of kit where you've got the 2 waves interacting with each other and wave shaping and things like that, but with just a single oscillator. Tons of stuff in there, isn't there? Let's have a look at another one. There's 40 of these. I'm not going to go through them all. I'm just trying to explain exactly how they work. So let's take a look at one with sync. Again, just really nice interactions between the waveforms. High sync square. So again, you'd need 2 oscillators to do that. You'd need one to sync to the other, and then you need to be able to change the tuning of them. Let's look for some FM, or should we try some ring mod? So you're changing the coarse tuning of the ring mod, and then you're changing the fine tuning. That actually means that you can get those really nice melodic ring mod tones really easily. I just love this. It's a really clever spin on virtual analog, and it means that you can get up and running with those FM and the ring mod tones and sync really quickly. Let's try for some FM, shall we? I've not found it yet, but I know it's in here. I've played with it earlier. There we go. FM square and a square. Making it sound awful. Let's find another one. FM a triangle and a square. So you get the idea, hopefully. So let's move over then to the filter. We are getting step in there. It's not really a big deal actually. I think people picked it out on the Cobalt 8. Because I did notice it on that as well, but normally you're not really doing this. If you do it with an envelope, it works fine, it's really smooth. But what you'll notice there, we're not getting really harsh sounds, are we? If we go into the modulation menu, we can add note cutoff. So let's put that onto 64. So now we're tracking the notes. Is that tracking or just slightly off? Let's turn it into a very thin pulse. And this reminds me a little bit of my Jupiter 6 actually. You can get resonant tones from it, but you don't get self-resonance once you're not exciting it with an oscillator. Much more resonant now. So it's not a screechy, squealy acid machine. I say that the TB303 didn't self-oscillate either, did it? Did I say self-resonate before? If I did, I get told off for saying that because it doesn't exist. Apologies to somebody who's already probably put it in the comments. We're not getting down into those really low frequencies. Let's check it on the analyzer. Let's decouple that from the keyboard so that we can get some of the lower notes, hopefully. Turn that down to 0. Oh, it goes negative as well. Interesting. So it cuts off just before 20, way beyond my hearing and most people's hearing, but it doesn't go down to those sort of 20 or 30 hertz, those really low bassy sub rumbles that make the windows start shaking in here when I've got some of my analog stuff out. But we've got an awful lot more to look at. Let's take a look at the morph function. That changes it from a low pass to a band pass, and then to a one pole, so it goes from a 4-pole low pass resonant to a band pass to a 1-pole resonant low pass. Turn a bit of resonance up so you can hear it. That's your 4-pole. Really nice, that, isn't it? Then we've got different modes. We've got high pass, we've got balanced, and we've got phased or something like that. Let's go and find them. So here we go, we've got the type, we've got resonant low pass we've been listening to there, then we've got a balanced low pass, and that just stops the bass disappearing really when you've got the resonance up, but it means that you lose a little bit of bass as well when you've got the resonance up when you go into low notes. Let's have a listen. Let's put that on 4-pole. So that's on the balanced low pass. Go to the resonant low pass. Not that much difference. Let's try and turn the resonance up or down or do something slightly different with it. Not losing much bass there. Let's go back in here. Now that was the balanced one, that's why, maybe. Yeah, you lose a lot more there, don't you? And you've got much more resonance. Back into the balanced again. Yeah, so slight differences there. Then let's move over to, I think it's more subtle, isn't it, on the balanced. Let's move over to the balanced high pass. And then we've got a balanced phase as well. So the high pass. What you'd expect. Let's bring the resonance down so we can see what it's doing. Get a notch. Oh yeah, so one's 1-pole and one's 4-pole again. So lots and lots of flexibility in that, isn't there? And then finally, we've got this balanced phase. I like this one. I like them all, but this has got a bit of uniqueness to it. For a man who likes a notch, that's lovely. Let's put a chord on. Nice. So yeah, holding octave minus and octave plus together gives you a sustain mode. So really flexible filter, loads of sound sculpting you can do in there. The only thing you don't really get is that really harsh resonance that you get with something like an MS-20 or that PWM Malevolent I played with a few weeks ago. That was just completely insane. But it's really well behaved, isn't it? Okay, let's take a look at, what else should we take a look at? Should we take a look at the effects? To access the effects, we press the cutoff button, and now we're on chorus. This isn't labeled here actually, so you have to go into shift, and now we're changing the modulation depth. Let's put some on, shall we? Let's rate, depth, and the mix. Let's turn the mix up. Very nice. Let's play with the delay. We're on the delay now. Put shift on, and now we're altering the delay parameters. Let's add it in the mix. And you can see this all happening on the app. The filter's interesting. At halfway, there's no filtering. If you go left, so below 64, you start getting a low pass. If you go above 64, you get high pass. Let's put the initial tone back on. Again, let's change that to a sawtooth. Let's go back into the delay. And this can all be synced. If we take the time down past 0, it goes into sync mode. So both of the effects are really simple to use, but they sound great. The only thing I wish it had was a reverb to do those big, massive sort of reverb spaces that I quite like. Should we take a look at the arpeggiator and the sequencer? In here we've got 100 sequencer patches. If we take a look at them on the app, and we can assign any of these to any of the tones, so you can have a sequence that you play on different tones, which is really handy. Let's just load one in. Let's play it. And you can hear straight away there, it's got something going on with the animation lanes. Let's take a look. To the sequencer. Animation lanes, there we go. All sorts of stuff happening. LFO1 depth, animation 1, animation 2, LFO rate, animation 3, filter decay, and then the cutoff. So let's just change some of these, shall we? To make them and to get things up and running, it's really simple to do it on the synth itself. Let's load a new one. Let's go into sequence. We'll load, let's say, an initial patch. There we go, let's load that one. There should be nothing in there. Okay, should we record something in? I don't know. Let's play that. That worked. Let's add an animation lane. And you can edit everything on the synth itself. Press patch and record. We're now in step edit mode. We can see we've got 5 notes there. I don't know if it's shown on the camera. We can edit those. And we can edit the animation lanes. We've got 4 animation lanes there as well. We can see filter cutoff is on animation lane 1. And here we are scrolling through each of the different steps. So as I keep on saying, you can edit everything on the synth itself. You don't need the app to do it. The app just makes it easier if you're doing some deep editing. What else should we look at? Should we take a look at the envelopes? It's probably easiest to show on the app, but we've got 8 different types of envelopes, or 8 different envelope shapes. So that's on exponential. Let's change it a bit. Let's go into the amp envelope. So that's on exponential. Let's change it to snappy. You can hear it sort of got like a scoop at the end there. Let's have a listen to soft. Was that a much softer start? Yes, it was. Linear. It's, oh, almost cut off straight at the end. Reminds me of my P600, that. Exponential long. Snappy long. and soft long. So, oh, and linear long as well. So slightly different changes in it, but if you're doing percussive sounds and things like that, or big long sweeping pads, it will make a difference. It just makes the most, I suppose, of the limited number of steps or number of bits you've got in the actual algorithm itself. So I thought it was worth showing that. Anything else I have missed out on this? I've not gone into too much depth into anything actually because it is the same as the COBALT5s. There's plenty of other videos showing what the COBALT5 does, but just thought I'd get this out and show you what it sounded like. One thing that I really do like to do with the synth when I first get it, I've got a patch on the Prophet 5 called It's a Prophet. So I've programmed it into this from memory, so the Prophet's in the other room, but I'll just play you this patch. And this is the Prophet. Not bad, it needs a little tweak here and there, but you can tell it's not the same synth. The filter doesn't sound the same, but it's very close, and I just thought I'd do that because I like to find out if my synths have got an overall nice rich tone, and this definitely does. It's got no chorus, no delay, that's just 2 oscillators. So it's pretty nice, isn't it? And there's loads of really good presets on these. I was trying to do some sound demos where I normally just get a riff or two and just sort of play around with a few presets, but I ended up making that track that you heard at the intro that I'll play the whole lot at the end. So that sort of took up the best part of a day. And I did a couple of others, but I kept on finding little things that I really, really liked. And there was so many presets that I could have put various lines over the top of stuff. I was getting carried away with myself. So I'll just leave those to the end to take a listen to that. But what are my final thoughts? Well, if you haven't gathered already, I really like it. It is basically a cut down version of the 8. Having 5 voices, not 8, doesn't bother me. It didn't bother me on the Prophet 5. It doesn't bother me on something this small, and that costs a lot less either. The things it can't do sonically, I suppose, it hasn't got a reverb. It'd be quite nice if it had a reverb on it. It can't do screeching, squealing, dirty, acid tones. The resonance isn't as abrupt as it is on some of my analog synths. Again, that's not what this synth is. If you want something like that, maybe get an MS-20. But overall, it's a really great package. It's really portable. It doesn't take batteries itself, but I have used it on a power bank. You can't assign MIDI CCs, or you can't assign different MIDI CCs to the values in this. That makes perfect sense because obviously the app wouldn't work. But if you've got soft synths, you can use this as a controller as long as you can learn the MIDI CCs on the soft synths, which most of them do. So it's a great little unit. It's a little bit of a shame it doesn't have the CV out. If it had the CV out, it'd be a really sort of almost like a key step competitor, as well as having its own sounds in there. So yeah, really good, really worth looking at. If you like the COBALT5 or you like the Modal stuff and it's a little bit much of a stretch or you didn't have space for it, definitely check one of these out. Well, hopefully that was of some use to somebody somewhere, and if it was, please think about subscribing, ring the bell, and maybe even join me over on my Patreon page where I've got plenty of tutorials and patches and samples and stuff like that, help you to get the most out of your synths. And apart from anything else, it's really nice to know the channel supported. It takes a lot of effort, and it's just really nice to know that people enjoy what I do. So coming up now are the sound examples. I hope you enjoy them as well, and I will see you next time.